welcome Brian. What do you think of today's shopper and what differentiates him from the one 20 years ago? What changes do you notice?
I think there's a number of key changes. Firstly, I think there's a new generation of shoppers. I mean, for many years, the focus of marketing, retail marketing and marketing, was the family shopper, whereas today we have a very different mix of shoppers. You know, very different generation mix of shoppers. You know, we have the traditional family shopper, we have the new millennials and their up and coming families. We have more of a mix of single person households. So firstly, the mix of families are quite different. Okay, so and each of those segments do have differences in the shopping behaviour. Well, both the consumption and the shopping. That's one. I think there's no question that you know the expanded range of shopping tools is having a dramatic effect. I mean, the fact that you can now buy at home in front of your laptop or desktop, you can buy on your cell phone, on your mobile phone, you can buy in the store, or you can buy in a combination of all those, right? So that clearly has made shopping a much more a multi-channel opportunity, and you know that's going to continue to expand. I mean, there'll be 10 years from now, there will be even more different ways that people can buy. I think that's another very big change. I think changes in the needs of shoppers. You know, shoppers aren't just looking for the same thing. You know, there's definitely different segments of shoppers that are looking for different things. So the whole idea of what is value to one shopper is not the same as it is to another shopper. So we have to really think of shoppers as different segments of shoppers with different value propositions likely to appeal to different segments of shoppers. So I think I wouldn't say the fragmentation, but I think the increased variability in types of shoppers, in shopping media, in lifestyles, and in generational mix of shoppers. I think they would be the biggest changes in the last, say, 5 years.
Oh, okay, perfect. And regarding the integration of shopper in the category process, what created this integration, and why is it so important?
I think a couple of things created it. I think, firstly, we now know more about the shopper. We have more ability to study and to understand shopper behavior than we ever had. I think it started with loyalty cards, where we could at least understand how shoppers in a particular retailer, how they shop, what they bought, how frequently they purchase. So I think, and then the expanded range of shopper research tools and approaches. So I think we know more about the shopper. The ability to get information about shopping behavior, it has expanded dramatically. I think also there's been a realization, particularly among manufacturers, that if you're going to influence decisions about your brand, the best place to do it is at the point of shopping decision. So the ability to be able to influence the environment and the triggers at the point of purchase versus the more traditional marketing, which was, you know, in front of a television to send information about a product or a store, to send a circular to shoppers on a weekly basis about your store. There's a realization that while they have an effect, there's no better place to influence behavior than at the point of purchase. So I think the whole recognition that shopper behavior is an important point of influence, along with consumer behavior, the combination of the two, I think is really what's set the stage for, you know, the new advances in category management, because the original category management brought the consumer into retail decision making, because knowledge of the consumer rested with the manufacturer. And category management was a platform that allowed the manufacturer to bring in what he knew about the consumer. So it was bringing the consumer insights into how we manage a category. Whereas now, with more shopper information, we can bring a combination of consumer insight and shopper insight and focus it on how we manage a category. So I think that's kind of the evolution.
Perfect. And today, online business and smartphones are taking a main role in the market.
Right.
What role can have category management at this level, having in mind that there's no physical shelves?
Well, at least the way I look at it, I think these are tools, right? They are tools to be able to communicate with, to activate certain forms of behavior. So depending upon where in that category and brand purchase cycle, these tools are most influential. You know, what you want to be able to do is these become additional tools to communicate, to send information, to send value propositions to the consumer. But they're part of a bigger picture. You know, it's not like smartphones are going to take over the whole shopping procedure, because frankly, this is just the latest way of influencing shopper behavior. So, and smartphones are going to have much more important role in certain phases of the shopping cycle. In other phases, the desktop or the telephone might have a more important role, and of course the store, the in-store store presence is still going to play a major role. So the way I look at it is these are new and exciting tools to be able to communicate with and to activate the kind of shopper behavior that we want to make the category perform better. So, you know, it's not going to be a replacement of traditional shopping. It's going to be an augmentation, you know, in addition to a new set of tools to be able to make the category more visible, more interesting to the shopper, and frankly to make the shopper more knowledgeable with the right information at the right time in that purchase cycle. So.
Oh, okay. And virtual shelves are developing in Latin America. How do you think category management can be applied, if it can?
Well, if you got to think this the same way as you would online shopping, right? I mean, essentially, what you're doing is you have to present products and a proposition in some logical way. Just like we've been challenged in an in-store environment, we have to be able to present products to the shopper in a way that makes shopping easy, right? Communicates the right kind of information about the products. The same applies. You know, it doesn't matter whether it's a physical shelf or a digital shelf, right? You have to be able to apply the same principles. You've got to make it easy for the shopper. You can't confuse the shopper. If you have an unorganized, disorganized, confusing depiction of products, whether it's digital or on a shelf, you are still going to not achieve the potential in the category. So to me, it doesn't really matter whether it's a digital presentation or a physical presentation. We still have to apply the old principles of good merchandising. You know, how do we get the shopper to understand it, to be comfortable with it, and based upon that to make the kind of decisions that we'd like them to make. And you know, we've just started to do some interesting work with the whole idea of how do you present on a screen good merchandising principles, right? How do you take the principles that we know work in physical space? How do you adapt that to work in a digital space? Because most of the companies that are retailers and manufacturers, their investments in digital marketing has been simply to build the infrastructure. You know, get the connections, the infrastructure in place to sell online. But the next step is how do you then, once you have that infrastructure in place, how do you then leverage those investments to the maximum extent, return on investment? So that's when you have to go back to the old principles of good merchandising, you know, good presentation, good logical presentation, good pricing, good assortment, right? So you have to go back and combine the new technology of digital representation with the old principles of good, solid merchandising.
Oh, okay. And finally, what advice would you give retailers?
What advice? Well, retailers are very reluctant to take advice. I shouldn't say that.
You can give it to
I
them.
shouldn't. Yeah. You know, I think if you look at the retailers around the world that have been most successful, okay, I think there's a couple of characteristics. I mean, one is that they really do understand their shoppers, right? And not only their shoppers, but how their shoppers behave versus their competitors. So there's a real, what's the word, inquisitiveness about understanding their shoppers, because that's their franchise, and they want to be able to understand that shopper so as they can continue to build loyalty, right? So the whole idea of building loyalty among the shoppers that are most important for your value propositions. I mean, that's one. I mean, secondly, I think the partnership with suppliers. You know, I call it intelligent collaboration. You know, you don't have to surrender any kind of power. The real issue is to realize that if you can find ways to share, that is a competitive advantage. So collaboration, intelligent collaboration can be is for retailers a major competitive advantage, which needs to be leveraged to its full extent. And I think, lastly, you know, retailing is dynamic. It's always changing, right? So you have to stay abreast of new techniques, and shopper marketing clearly is, you know, the next generation of techniques. So how you migrate your greater knowledge of the shopper, your collaboration with suppliers, how you migrate that into fully, you know, more complete company-wide shopper marketing commitment is something which is going to pay great dividends.
Well, thank you very much, Brian.
You're welcome.